This week we talk about welcome to the show. This week we talk about ESPN's 30 for 30 documentary, You Don't Know Bo, and Robert Rodriguez's breakthrough autobiography-ish thing, Rebel Without a Crew. Welcome to the show. It's new to you.
Welcome to another episode of the New to You show. I'm one of your hosts, John Holt. With me this week is...
I'm Mary Varn.
And...
I'm Keith Vincent, one of your other hosts.
Back with us this week is...
Adam Moerder.
Yeah.
All right, Adam, welcome
back. Sorry
Yeah.
you fell asleep under that tree and nobody woke you up
thanks
until
for
just now.
finding me in that cave, guys.
No problem,
Not
man.
freezing me.
Rip Van Mater.
What year is it?
So this week we are delving into a new theme, which is...
Nonfiction.
Nonfiction. So we've got some really good picks for you. I don't think we have to explain what nonfiction is. I think that's pretty clear.
If you know what fiction is, then you probably know what nonfiction is.
It's not.
It's the opposite.
Right.
It's the opposite of fiction.
All this stuff happened.
But is it the truth?
Yeah, I don't know. It's in the eye of the beholder.
There you go.
But beholders are in D&D,
Those are
which are
fictional
characters. Yeah,
characters.
which are fictional.
Whoa.
Who knows, man?
So this week, what was new to me, just jumping right in here, I started watching the Netflix show Derek. I watched
that's
the
a new
first
one.
episode of that.
Cool.
The Ricky Gervais. It has Carl Pilkington, and it's good. I like
Carl Pilkington.
Carl Pilkington, yeah. But I liked it. It was funny, and
I heard it was very poignant at times.
yeah, it's pretty heartfelt. Like it's a sad funny, and it follows his sort of format of documentary-ish, but you're not too clear.
But the main character he's nothing like Michael Scott. He's
he's sort of...
I know there's some debate over that if he's supposed to be like mentally challenged, which I'm pretty sure he's not.
Or if he's making fun of mentally challenged.
It seems like he might be like autistic or like Asperger's, kind of like focused and like, or just limited intelligence. Like someone
maybe he's just a really weird guy.
Yeah, that's possible.
Is
like
the premise that they're all in a home?
yeah, so the idea is that he works as a caretaker at old folks home. And I don't know if they're sort of like, if this is a sort of free old folks home, like if they have these in the UK because they have like a social single payer healthcare, if that's what this is, or if people are electively put in these homes. But he's a caretaker, and it's also, I mean, I've only watched the first episode. It's not clear yet if he is also being taken care of there, if this is sort of the thing. But it seems like the other people who work there may also be
kind of taking care of him,
and they're also sort of in similar situations. Like the woman who he has a lot of interest in is like a high school, like she finished high school and instead of going to college went into this sort of like lower rung job or whatever. It seems like you're dealing with people who are just sort of, the old people don't have anywhere else to go because this is where they end up. And these people just societally, these are the jobs that when you shift the thing, this is one job up from being, in an institution yourself kind of thing. So the other caretakers and the groundskeepers and stuff are all, they could be on an estate.
Is it funny though?
Yeah, it's funny.
Okay, good. Is it that uncomfortable funny that the British Office was?
No, it's a little, I mean, there are moments like that. It's more, you aren't laughing at his character kind of thing. There are funny things that his character will do, and you'll, like, it's not
well, that's
mean.
good.
It's not mean.
I feel like the Michael Scott stuff just kind of got a little too easy a little bit. I mean, not to take anything away from the old British Office. I mean, at the time, nothing like it existed. But now that we've seen that, it's just really easy to have a kind of oblivious character.
Right.
That, it's funny because he doesn't give a crap about anyone. Right. So it's I'm glad that they're not going that route on this.
This one is more, he's actually kind of an oblivious character because of his seemingly limited intelligence, where he'll find things, he'll focus on things and find things touching, and he'll kind of like be a little myopic, and instead of your own worldview seeing how small this person is, your own worldview sees how like you just kind of go like, this is like a child, and you look at this person who's like a child, and you see, you're living in an old folk home, death is going to be present, and how do they deal with that, and just dealing with.
Well, Bill and Ted showed us how to deal with that.
Right.
You challenge them to a game.
Right. And then you go up to heaven and get aliens to build robots of yourself.
Yeah. Well, we don't know if they're aliens. It's station. Who knows? It's multidimensional.
Yeah, that's true. Future. So I would recommend giving it a try.
Good. Well, I mean, I've been happy with the stuff on Hulu so far. Though I wasn't
It's on
too
Netflix.
crazy. Oh, Netflix.
Yeah.
Oh. I wasn't crazy about that Awesomes show yet.
Is that on
The
Hulu?
animation. That's a Hulu animation. It's Seth Meyer and
Oh, really?
a bunch of those dudes. Yeah, and it's sad because I know a couple of guys that worked on it, but I don't know. It's just not there yet.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched.
I'll give it some more.
Netflix wise, I mean, I loved the U.S. remake of House of Cards.
Yeah.
And I loved I like this show
Orange
so
is
far.
the New-
Orange is the New Black. We're so close to done with that, and it's
I like that more
great.
than House of Cards, but I haven't finished it.
So I mean, those are both just solid. I've watched Teeny TV, and their werewolf one was a Teeny TV like werewolf show.
What is that?
Hemlock Grove. And
What's Teeny
What's
TV?
Teeny TV?
like CW demographic is like teenage.
Oh, teeny,
girl-
like teenage.
like
not
teenage girl,
small.
like tween,
Yeah, I'm
teen.
picturing,
Not
I'm
teen.
picturing like tiny televisions.
Tiny televisions, like iPhones with Netflix.
The kind
on
you
them.
have to squint at.
Yeah, but so that tiny televisions with werewolves on them.
But really, they kind of look like mice because
Right.
they're so small.
But for that, I mean, the show is kind of whatever. But there were
what
good
is
actors.
it? No, what's the show and what's the what are you talking
It's
about?
called Hemlock Grove,
Hemlock Grove. Okay.
and it's basically like this supernatural thing, and it's very Twilighty, but better written than Twilight. Lily Tomlin's in it.
Oh,
Not
cool.
Lily Tomlin. Lily Taylor.
Taylor.
Yeah.
Lily Taylor.
But she's good too. She's weird, but I like her. But it's like these gypsies roll into town and they're werewolves, and the people who run the town are
It's set in modern day.
the people like the sort of ruling class family, the family who owns the hospital and the lab that everyone works at the place of and owns factories there. They have some sort of like old world like monster siren powers or something. So there's these sort of two vying powers, these gypsies and these things. And
Does
then-
anyone sparkle when the sun hits them?
No, there's a weird
well,
glow
forget it
room.
then.
There's
Don't
like a
worry about it.
glowworm girl,
Is there really?
but she's like a Frankenstein monster. But
Really?
sort of. But that's the other side, because the third piece is that there's the
Does
scientist
she have
guy
other
doing
powers other
experiments.
than just glowing?
No,
So that'd be pretty
she
weak.
should be dead, I think, is part of her thing.
She should be dead, but she's still alive.
Yeah. She was like Frankenstein.
That's a pretty good power.
Yeah. So, but that's the show. It's like, teenage boy.
And
This
what is
little
that's on
mystery.
WB?
No, it's Netflix.
Oh,
But it
okay.
could have easily been on CW or
Got
WB.
it. Or UPN?
Yeah. But it's another one of those Netflix shows.
Got it.
But yeah. That's it. What was new to you, Keith?
Oh, a friend of mine a couple weeks back suggested I listen to this podcast that I really like.
This
and
one?
This one?
well, no, my friend John Holt suggested I listen to this podcast, and I still regret that I do. No, but there's a podcast called 12 Byzantine Rulers. That's this fellow wrote this book called Forgotten Empire about the Byzantine Empire, and he started making this podcast that kind of chronicles the lives of 12 of the most influential rulers of that empire during its reign. It's absolutely fascinating.
Oh, cool. That
If
sounds
anyone
great.
likes history, you should definitely check this out. It's people take for granted that the Roman Empire fell when the Vandals came and sacked the city, but that is absolutely not the case at all. In fact, what we call the Byzantine Empire was called the Roman Empire, and it lasted until the 1700s. It's amazing that it, for 1,000 years longer than the original, so the empire itself lasted for well over 2,000 years, and it's really fascinating. And all of the Greek classics, everything that came from before Rome, we only know, well, in the Western world, I should say, we only know because the Byzantine Empire kept it safe. And as well, I mean, there's an argument to be made that because the Byzantine Empire kept the Muslim, the Islamic raiding people out of Europe, it's the only reason why Europe hasn't been converted to Islam in the during that time
The
period.
Islamic raiding people.
Well, no, I mean Muhammad was a conquering Messiah. I mean they conquered a lot of area. So and so without the Byzantine Empire, who knows what this world would have looked like. It's pretty cool. And he also did another podcast after that one wrapped up because there were only like 15 episodes. But after he did that, he did this podcast called The Norman Centuries, which is equally fascinating about the Norman people from, they started off somewhere in Scandinavia, Northern Europe, and eventually ruled most of France, parts of England. Well, actually, they were the English king for a little while, so that were ruled by the Normans. And then all the way down to the south of Italy. The first Sicilian kingdom was founded by these Normans, these old Vikings, which is just a really fascinating. That time period is amazing because there are so many people that kind of were made themselves. You hear about, Alexander the Great, he's so, by the time he's 30, he conquered the known world. Well, he had a dad that set up an army to help him do that before his dad died. But these guys truly came, and they were truly self-made conquerors. And they came out of from nowhere to, this guy is a king crowned by the Pope. It's pretty amazing. But check those out. 12 Byzantine Rulers and the Norman Centuries, their podcasts. They're great. That's cool. What's new to me. Sorry it took so long.
That's okay.
What about you, Adam? Anything new?
I saw for the first time, I was in Philadelphia last weekend and saw Betsy Ross's house. And
cool.
I actually I'm pretty sure it's the first time I've seen it despite growing up nearby, but I saw the Liberty Bell finally, though I actually didn't see it up close because apparently some lunatic a couple years ago tried to spray paint it.
So it's in a little building?
Out of protest. So it's in a building that's it's really high security, and you can kind of see it through the window.
Right, you can walk by.
It's 5 feet away from you, but through a very thick glass. And Betsy Ross's house is just this very tiny house that, I don't know. It's just sort of.
So growing up, you didn't really explore that neighborhood much?
Because
that part, I just love to walk around.
But I grew up an hour outside of Philadelphia.
Did they have school trips or anything?
Did you guys that's
go?
why I'm saying I almost definitely saw the Liberty Bell at least during one of these trips, but to go. But
I bet you saw that Rocky statue a lot more.
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, because most trips are to the art museum where Rocky ran the steps and stuff like that. And I feel like they would just kick us off the bus and you go spill in directly to the museum,
right in the steps,
as opposed to because it's a pain to walk to the Liberty Bell to Betsy Ross's head. They're kind of all spread out. So
one time we should all go down there because I'm telling you. Just on a whim, my brother travels for work, and he called me up one day and was like, dude, I'm going to Pennsylvania. You should hop on a bus and meet me. And I don't know, it was just one of these rare occasions where I was like, good idea. And I did. Yeah. And it's just really cool to just walk around at night in that whole area of Philadelphia. And down by the museum, there's this whole river walk. That it looks a little like the
with the boathouses.
The Champs-Elysees and stuff. I mean, it looks.
I wouldn't go. It is Philadelphia.
But it's neat because at night it's practically abandoned. It's really cool. It's a really beautiful.
Yeah, you can see those boathouses in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia in the opening credits.
With the lights, with the almost Christmas lights looking. Yeah.
Yeah, I've only been to Philadelphia once for a Wizard World Con
I think
with you guys.
I was there with you,
So I have not seen all these
I was not
things.
there, and I don't want anyone to think that I was.
You were there in spirit.
Now,
I was protesting.
One place
I
want to go.
You back a sword.
I definitely want to go to the Muter Museum there.
Yeah.
That's one thing I've never seen.
I've been meaning to do that too. The problem is I always am in Philadelphia to see my mom, and she does not want to do that. So,
that's the museum of weird medical oddities, right?
Well, my interest was rekindled because someone had posted how they save their hardened foot skin from calluses in jars. and then
The people that work there?
No, this guy,
does.
and then he'll send the full jars to the muter and get these letters back, like, thank you for your like collection of human skin for our samples of human skin for our collection.
But he doesn't get paid for it.
I sent him a whole body. It's like, I just found it.
I hope you didn't put a return address on that. Well, no, they have weird stuff there, like a tumor from some president. They took a tumor out and they have it there.
Is it Garfield or something? Or no? What was the?
He was shot.
Who was the dude with the fake who had?
It might be
his jaw removed, and they gave him a rubber jaw.
Well, I don't know, but I think it might be Ulysses S. Grant.
Oh, really?
There's a tumor there and I think it's Ulysses S. Grant, but it's just a medical oddities museum. That's the one we got to check out. So, a field trip for New to You.
Yeah.
Let's
do it. If you, there's a weird, like one of those bathroom books that I have. That's one of those.
Uncle John's Readers.
Yeah, but this one's called The Beginner's Book of Endings, and it's basically excerpt after excerpt about like one whole section is how you age and die, and what the stages of like how your hearing goes. How your eyesight goes.
I do not want to read that.
But then there's...
but what if you're taking a dump, Mary? Doesn't that change the whole equation?
But then I'll just read the part about how your stool starts to get a certain
your
color, and that
like
means you're
flappy.
about to die.
Your anus relapses.
And then, but it's more like that's more about aging and like slow, like the body sort of expiration dates and the certain benchmarks you'll start to hit to when you go sour or whatever. But the other parts in that they talk.
So it's an aspirational story.
Yeah, but they talk about different presidents. They actually, in some of them, they show like what was this person worth when they died and what was in their will, and we'll like talk about that. And some
presidents
of the presidents, yeah, and some other like sort of famous people of history, and they'll talk about different funerals and sort of how this person died, and so it's all these little like excerpts about the end of all these things and where these people ended up, because sometimes their story ends when they end, but sometimes their story ends and then they go off and you don't ever know really what happens with them, and it can be illuminating to see what
what do you mean their like, story ends and then they go off?
Like when they're out of the limelight,
right? Right. So Lincoln, his story pretty much ended at the Ford Theater, or 20 something hours later, but there are presidents that kind of you may only know that these two guys died on the same night because it just happened to be the 4th of July, and one guy took a carriage to the other and said so and so's dead. I knew it, and he drops dead. It's like
what is this you're talking about?
I don't know. Like,
is that a real thing?
There's some folks' story that like two founding fathers or whatever died on 4th of July or something like that in the same night.
I think two or three out of the first 5 were born on the 4th of July or something.
Wow, and in wheelchairs. Yes. So Mary,
hey Lieutenant Dan,
what was new to you?
New to me was Gone Home. It is. People call it a video game. I call it an interactive story. I don't think it's right to call it a video game.
What platform is this on?
It's on PC or Mac. It's on a computer.
Is it just you walking? Going home. There's the deli.
It's about you're a young woman, like probably in mid-20s or something, and you're sort of like you have a job or whatever, or maybe you're in college. I don't know. You come home and you expect your family to be there, but they're not. Uh-oh. And you just go through this house and explore, and a story unfolds about your family. So it's kind of like Myst or some of these other like first person kind of explory type games, but there aren't puzzles.
I see.
There might be like you got to find a key in order to go into this one room, or you might find a secret door or something like that, but otherwise it's basically just finding letters. It's set in the mid-90s, so that's another thing that's very nostalgic for me, because I was a teenager then, and a lot of the story is about following her sister, who's younger, who is a teenager, so would have been the same age as me. And so because it's in the mid-90s, you can get away with like finding cassette tapes that you can listen to, and letters. People didn't communicate with email, so it's nostalgic, and it's just interesting. It's very short. I played it in about 3 hours, something like that. 4
What's
hours.
the atmosphere like? I mean, Myst is sort of like mystical and mysterious.
No, I mean,
but
this is
some are
very.
dark.
That's another. The game has gotten a lot of press. It's an indie game, and I'm not sure how they got off the ground or how they've gotten so much press. I think it's great that they have, but one of the things that people say about it is that it's just a very kind of ordinary setting. You're just in a house, and it's...
and it pretty much all takes place in the house?
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Yeah. And again, I don't feel like it's a game, and I think if you approach it that way, you'll be a little disappointed. Because at first I was like, where are the puzzles?
Yeah.
But the story's pretty interesting.
Where do I shoot some aliens?
Yeah. It's just kind of a different way of telling a story. It's like
that's neat. I like
my
those
so-called
cool.
life, but in this interactive way of telling it, I
from
guess.
the 90s.
Yeah, exactly.
Remember the 90s?
Yeah.
All right.
So, yeah.
Is it free or do you have to buy it?
No, it's
Is it on Valve or Steam?
Steam. It might be on Steam. I think I bought it directly from the publisher because I thought they would get more money that way. But it may be on Steam.
Cool.
I think it's like $10 or $15. It might even be $20. It's a little pricier. It's kind of pricey for how much time it is.
Mm-hmm.
But I think
But
when
it's called
you
Going Home or Coming Home?
Gone Home.
Gone Home. Okay.
Yeah, Gone Home.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was great. Account of a fictional thing.
Thank you.
And that segues us into a non.
That was not a great
That was a
segue.
terrible segue. Sorry, everybody. So we have
Well, our
nonfiction.
theme is nonfiction.
Yeah,
and let's do it.
Let's get into it.
Let's not lie anymore.
We live in a non-fictional world.
It's true.
We might as well discuss
Let's
it.
tell some truth, man.
There are stars and there are superstars, and then there was Bo Jackson.
Like, I'm fast. He's faster. Then there's Bo Jackson.
Bo Jackson was as good an athlete as the country has seen probably since Jim Thorpe.
To me, he's the greatest athlete of the 20th century. There's not even an argument there.
Every 2 or 3 days, he would do something.
So I chose for this week, You Don't Know Bo, a documentary in ESPN's documentary series 30 for 30. The series is pretty excellent overall, but I chose this one because, I don't know, I was just bored one night and had some time to kill. Just put it on. It's only about an hour and a half, and it's about Bo Jackson, who, if you're not aware of who he is, he was a professional baseball and professional football player in the late 80s, and he had a short but brilliant run until a really massive hip injury kind of took a lot out of him, and he sort of never rebounded from that. But he made the All-Star game, he made the Pro Bowl in the NFL, he's a huge college star at the University of Auburn. And yeah, I think I just picked this film because I wasn't following sports when I was too young and just didn't care about sports. When Bo
You had
Jackson,
to have seen the commercials, though.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I was just about to say I don't remember. Like I don't even think when I was 10 I could name what team Bo Jackson played for. Like I don't even remember they played for the Royals or the Raiders. But he was such a cultural phenomenon, and he had Deion Sanders afterwards, and he played both sports, but he kind of sucked at baseball. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that. He was also very one-dimensional in football. He was just very fast. He couldn't really tackle people and stuff. And I think I was really drawn to this documentary. I think because there's one aspect of professional athletes that you may or may not encounter in your own life or something, where it's just they're physically gifted, they work their asses off, and they're smart or just smart within the game or something. And it's totally impressive, but it's also like can feel a little mechanical or something. I think like Tom Brady is a great example of this, where he's just like, for whatever reason, he's just very good at football, and he's not necessarily a great athlete. He's just good at this like one thing, quarterbacking, and he's like perfect at it, like a machine. But then there are these people who are like urban legendy or something, or like tall tales that like,
Right.
I saw this guy throw a football 80 yards. I saw this guy like he like learned skating on his first try, or he could win the 100-meter dash or the mile. Like, it didn't matter what race. And
You could lasso a tornado.
Exactly. And Bo Jackson strikes me as that sort of person where you're like, I don't know, he's so like mystical in a way that to me it seems so hard. I don't even like, there are, I guess, some examples in modern sports, but it's also so much like, I don't know, people from the time they're young are so well trained and well coached, and like nutrition data is like amazing, and the training data, like everything is just so scientific and precise that it can feel like you're losing that. Like, Bo Jackson just seemed to come out of like nowhere, and he was just amazing. And he played 2 professional sports and excelled at them, which is a thing that no one's really done since.
Right.
And and then I also, lastly, I thought he was like a very interesting person, in that he had no ego at all.
Right.
Was like almost.
Well, young Bo Jackson had a little ego. He said.
Well, he had the ego that
he made
you
some
need.
decisions just to kind of say,
Sure.
like, you shirked me, so
Well,
I'm gonna.
I just
That's
mean
a
he
little-
didn't think he was like a superstar. I was just about to say he's probably a little too naive, because when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did what they did and got him
Right.
In trouble with the NCAA, he got so upset. Like, that was like such a shock to him, because
He's a deal killer.
Exactly, yeah, and so much so that he just quit football for a year, which is insane.
Well, not only that, but he said, if you draft me, you're wasting a draft pick.
Exactly.
Do not draft me. Yeah, which was something.
Exactly. So I just thought he was interesting, and he's also adjusted to post sports life in such a nice way. Whereas, I don't know, you read about all these former athletes who are having all sorts of problems, whether it's gambling or drugs or whatever, concussion related problems or something like that, or just plain mental health problems. But he, I don't know, he's kind of seemed ready to stop playing sports the moment he got hurt. He was just sort of like, well, I'll just deal with, if I can never be Bo Jackson again, I'm fine making arrows in Alabama or wherever he lives.
It seemed
Bow
too
hunting.
like, I don't know if this is totally the case. He kind of said, I don't know if it's because he was sort of sad about not being able to, but he kind of said like his wife would be sitting to watch a game and he'd be like, you know what, I'm just gonna go down and work in the workshop or whatever. This is post time Bo Jackson. So my kind of thing is, it sounded like this guy was a guy who loved playing.
Yeah, but
He
not
didn't care about the game.
He didn't care about
or the
money
culture,
either. You can
yeah.
tell,
Yeah,
too.
that wasn't what he was there for. He was there to exercise himself and kind of enjoy,
push himself.
He enjoyed what he was doing and doing what he needed to do as best as he could, which just so happened to be better than anyone else could ever do it, was somewhat his detriment. Like, some of the like little digs in there were, if I had this guy longer, it almost was like, if this guy would listen to me, I could make him the best ever.
Yeah, that's like what people say about Shaq, where it was like, he was just so fun-loving and goofy, and they were like, if he would have learned to make free throws, if he would have kept the weight off, blah, 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 like, he could have been a monster, like a video game
But they don't
character.
really say that about Bo, right? They just say, like, if only he didn't get that hip injury.
Well, no, I mean, there is a lot of
In
that.
baseball, they said a little bit.
Well, they said also that
He was a
when
raw
it came
player.
to he didn't do a great deal in practice.
right.
He would
He
learn-
said practice is a waste of time. because
So, I mean, he
Why,
he-
like, exercise? Why get tired?
Yeah, he said he
and-
didn't lift weights, I think, at one point.
Yeah. Well, I gotta say, I was recommended to watch this, and I watched it a long time, months ago, and a friend of mine suggested it, and I was glad I watched it. But I gotta say, as a documentary, I was a little disappointed, simply because there was so much. The whole documentary is set up around this idea of there are no more legends. Like Bo Jackson was the last legend. He came at a time when everyone wasn't videotaping everything. And so a lot of the stuff is just hearsay. Certain records weren't kept. But to me, a lot of it seemed like just kind of a cop-out. They would talk about, oh, well, I saw him throw this these apples, 300 yards into, or something like this. And which is a fine little story, but most of the documentary was based on these things that people thought they saw him do, or, and I was almost kind of like, where's the proof? I mean, he was a fine running back, but you got to imagine that if a running back only played for that period of time, his per carry yardage should be upwards of 5 or 6, like Jim Brown. You know what I mean?
Right.
But it wasn't. You know what I mean? And so part of me is just kind of like, he's great. There's no denying that. Amazing athlete, really cool guy. But just talk about that. Don't talk about this weird, like, shrouded in mystery. So much of the documentary was just people going, oh, what if he could have, and all this stuff. And I'm just kind of like, well, just talk about what he did, and what he's doing now. That to me is really interesting. Not this whole like, kind of like, you should have seen it kind of thing. Go ahead.
But I feel like part of that is almost a documentary of how people saw him. So I don't think they were saying, oh, he really did these things that supposedly he did in high school that nobody saw but this one coach or whatever.
Yeah.
Who knows if he really did them, but the point is the awe that he inspired in those people, and maybe he did that, maybe he didn't.
Right, and it lent credence to the things that they only heard were hinted at. That's the other side.
Right. But I mean, how many teammates can they have saying, he's the greatest athlete I've ever seen? It's just like, okay, we get it after like the fourth one that you say that. You know what I mean? It's kind of like having his whole roster say that doesn't mean anything. Let's see the stats. Let's see the footage. There was so little footage of him actually doing any sports in that documentary, which I found to be kind of sad.
They had this like famous wall run where he like runs up the wall.
Yeah.
And he threw out Harold Reynolds at the plate.
Yeah, that was pretty sweet.
They had a lot of great catches from him. I mean, fantastic
and like steals
catches.
and stuff like that.
Yes, but the guy played baseball for 7-8 seasons. Like, let's see.
Yeah, but
that
a lot of them
footage.
were pretty short because of injury and football.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know what you mean though. But at the same time, it is amazing. Today, like, we kind of especially you see this with like Cuban imports in baseball, where we don't see, we're like denied access
coming up.
Yeah, you don't see them coming up at all, and all of a sudden, like I think a year and a half ago, this guy Yoenis Cespedes, which is a weird name, released this video of him like benching all this weight and doing these like crazy workouts, and everyone compared him to Bo Jackson because he was a very like running back style body. And it's funny, he came to like baseball, he hit a bunch of home runs, but he's not a complete player. Like, he doesn't have good
just a hitter
pitch recognition, he doesn't hit for high batting average, but he's just like a freak athlete. And it is funny how like he was demystified a lot more quickly. And people still, he's a good player and everything, but they're like, I'll take.
So Bo really lived up to it. I get that, but
I think the other point was,
but he might not have. I mean,
I think the other point was he came. There was a certain point where a lot of factors came into play that worked in his favor.
Oh no! I mean, I get it, and I mean, he had the skills,
right?
To back it all up. But I just feel like I grew up, knowing Bo Jackson, watching the cartoon with him and Michael Jordan and
Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah, the great one. But living that, seeing those commercials, knowing it, and really, watching. That's the only Kansas City Royal games I ever watched. You know what I mean?
Right.
I guarantee it. In my life, those are the only Kansas City Royals games I ever watched. Was when Bo Jackson was playing in them, and But I mean, his legacy's there. There are stats there, and it's not like he was a mystery. He was the top draft pick. You know what I mean? It's like he didn't come out of nowhere. Everybody was on the radar.
I think it was like the other part of this was the meteoric rise of him. And like, you have a point where when you get to the higher levels, he's not bringing the Royals to the big game. Like, he's not winning them the series, because that's where the even him at that high level, everyone else is getting up there too. Yeah. So you can't be a solo player and carry the team to full victory then. But in baseball, and even
unless you're a pitcher.
In football, I mean, he helped the Raiders immeasurably, and they
running back is a very pivotal role.
Right. So that's huge. But in college, I'd say his just his physical ability and his intelligence gave his team such an advantage that they were able to beat a much more adept team. And when he's a freshman, and that is huge. That is a big boost for, his abilities and his powers.
Yeah, I'm not
where
saying
that levels off.
I'm not saying that wasn't discussed, and then I'm not super impressed by Bo Jackson. I'm just saying that the documentary itself, I just felt like was a little too couched in that stuff.
Did you guys think? I mean, this is something too. One of the other aspects I saw was we're coming out of like steroid scandal, and
they
you
mentioned
talk
that in
about
the
like
documentary.
and I was I was happy that they did a little bit at the end, but it seemed almost like they were initially skirting around the edges of that to get to there. Well, this is someone who everyone was at a basic level playing field. There weren't, there were probably people using steroids, who knows, but not to the point where everyone was trying to be a record breaker. Bo Jackson comes in and could be the record breaker without using any of this stuff. Right. He is breaking records in like running back stats and stuff like that. He's doing things that are unbelievable and amazing. And he could, had he stayed in, gone that much further, but he's doing it. He's also setting a standard in terms of everyone focusing on and multi-million-dollar campaigns built around these people. And that almost maybe drove steroid culture. Like, people are only going to pay attention to Kansas City Royals and these smaller teams if they have somebody who is a big guy, like a big personality.
Like a freakish, like strength.
And so it almost incentivizes you to start manufacturing athletes like
well, I
monsters.
mean, I would believe that, except that, I mean, the history of baseball is riddled with
with
drugs
stuff.
all the way through, from amphetamines in the 60s and 70s to steroids in the 80s. I mean, it's never not been there.
Right.
So to think that he indirectly had anything to do with that.
We just know about it more now because we cracked down on it.
But you can't discount there was a curve where you just start seeing like the race for the high, for these high batting, like high home run guys, these just fat muscle guys.
Well, you think that, except that the 70 home run marker that the Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire broke that
and
season.
Barry Bonds,
was set in 1969 was when the 69
or Maris's 69,
was when that record was set. So it wasn't like it wasn't as if this is unheard of production.
But I guess the question
players.
is, if you have in 69 you have someone who maybe that was that Bo Jackson, or that was that someone at a level of whether it's physical intelligence or almost like freakish ability, an anomaly, who pops up, sets a record, and it takes how many more years for anybody to come close to that? But then you just have it happening in rapid succession. That it's question marks.
I think that there's some to be said about personal rivalries, because with all the big home run hunts, there's always two people neck and neck, and it is that personal tit for tat that I think really pushes certain records, and that's definitely the case with the Maris and Mickey Mantle.
Yeah, Mantle
and Maris home run race, and the Sosa McGwire race is the same thing. But the reason I come down a little bit on this one is because another documentary in the same series I watched was the Dr. J documentary.
I haven't seen that one.
Actually, it wasn't in that series. It was on the NBA Network's documentary, but it's about Dr. J, and it's actually, as far as a documentary, so much more beautiful. It's just elegant. It's super informative. You learn a lot, and I just thought it was watching the two really close to one another. It really made me. I mean, and trust me, I love Bo Jackson, and I was getting a lot of. I mean, I had a lot of respect for him already, but I don't know, just the documentary itself kind of upset me. The filmmaking behind it.
I liked the illustrations that illustrated.
The Nike.
There were illustrations in it that showed things that he did when he was.
Oh, that's
right.
Like the legends.
Younger.
Or you go to illustration of like Bear Bryant or something.
They were kind of like
that.
motion comics.
Yeah. They do a lot of fun stuff like that on that series.
The whole
on the
series
ESPN
does that.
thing,
Is it all that same style of illustration?
Not always.
No,
It just
it's
depends
always a
on the
different
subject.
direction.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because some of the documentaries are like very, very, very good, and then some are like bleh. And sometimes it's just the subject. Like I feel like a limiting factor with the Bo Jackson one is that Bo Jackson doesn't have much to say other than
he's
like
pretty quiet guy.
Yeah, I love playing these sports. I played them and did really great at them. That's that.
And now, so let's mention. So he got this freak accident. He had this freak injury that you could never imagine in a baseball. Like he shattered his hip.
Yeah, he basically
dislocated
his hip.
Then he
that's
popped
right.
it
And then there
back
was an
in.
infection.
Then he popped it back in, and it caused like necrosis because all the veins were broken to his leg in his hip. And
which is something that happens to like senior citizens. It's not something that happens to top athletes. That's why it was such a wild thing to have happened.
His physician in the documentary says because he was so fit, like you
He
wouldn't
didn't know
because of the raw power in his legs and his physiology. It lent to the speed that he was
because
moving,
he was going so fast, and when he
full
was knocked
stop that
over,
he was given,
it was so much force.
It was just all a comedy of errors, like all the things that could go wrong because of all his positive.
You can say that about any athlete. Well, if he wasn't running so fast, he wouldn't have hurt himself.
Yeah. But this
I mean,
is
look
the
at
kind of
Derek
thing where-
Rose. Derek Rose, when he hurt his knee, it was just like he just stopped. He just was trying to put on the brakes, and his knee
just exploded,
destroyed itself.
Well, but I guess in this one, it's more like this guy's running super fast. His physiology is a little different than other football players who are taking these hits all the time because of one, they're not moving fast, but also the way their musculature. Maybe that's where practicing comes in. Is that you have you have a certain build that can withstand this stuff, and he gets grabbed by the legs, full stop, and it just
pulls
it
himself
out the socket.
Yeah,
and then he just rolls and pops it back in and cracks
that's the
it.
craziest.
Oh.
Yeah.
But
and then tries to go.
The interesting thing is, so he had a long rehab after that. In his first comeback, he hits a home run for his mom, which is unbelievable. You know,
I mean, that's like a point to the bleachers kind of moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But then when it finally became clear, hey man, you're not you.
Yeah.
And most players would have said, I'm just going to ride this out. Someone's going to take me. I can DH, and especially him. He could have DH'd for years.
What
he
does
didn't
that
have
mean?
a designated hitter.
Like, don't play the field, you just hit only.
Yeah, in the American League in baseball, they have certain people that can just hit. That's all they do. And he could have
Usually
done
fat
that.
old guys.
And you'll have the guy run for you.
Did you say fat old guys?
No, they usually have to run if they get the hit. But
You just point to the base you want to be at. And you're there.
You run. Like put in a cigar after you hit the ball.
They just sit playing the
little kid
Xbox
run.
game.
This little kid runs.
But this guy, he's so, he wants to be the best all the time. And he says, listen, if I'm not at the top of my game, I'm not going to take away from any team. I'm just going to bow out. And that's what he did. He made plenty of money from Nike.
Yeah.
And so after that, he decides, well, I also just want to be the best hunter that I can be. And now he's dedicated all of this time and energy into becoming...
And he's like a
And
Fletcher.
it's bow,
yeah.
bow hunting.
Yeah, see, I was surprised he didn't have his own line of crossbow,
I know.
like bow, crossbow.
If he was anybody else, he would.
Yeah.
But he's just like, I don't need any of that. And
I mean, it was somewhat chilling when he's like, looking around his room of like animal heads, and is like, these are my trophies. Like it's this whole thing where the game didn't matter. He could have been doing anything, as long as he was like
the best,
enjoying himself and pushing himself.
Yeah.
And even not even pushing himself, really, just doing something that he wanted to do. He was content in that, and that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, he's a fascinating guy.
I just want to say to everybody out there listening, because we just kind of record this having a conversation amongst ourselves, but we're all sports, and I didn't really know who Bo Jackson was. I had heard of him, but I love this documentary. So if you're like me and you didn't really know who he was or don't follow sports, you'll probably still enjoy the documentary because it's just it's like a sports movie kind of,
And if that's the case, there are lots in the 30 for 30 series. There are a lot of great documentaries in there.
Cool. I'll check them out.
It was interesting because I don't know if you guys remember the M. Night Shyamalan movie Unbreakable.
Yeah.
But you have this guy who is
But it turns out he was breakable.
This quiet, like, whatever guy who has...
Workaday guy.
His powers, I mean, besides being able to read people's minds and know when there's danger or whatever, he was physically just one step above everybody else. And not to the point where he's like Superman, like crushing cars, but can run a little bit faster.
Maybe Luke Cage.
Yeah, exactly. So it was an interesting sort of parallel to that sort of like physical prowess. Like, could you have a Batman kind of moment? Like, what are those pinnacles? Could Bo Jackson have been Batman?
He could have.
Now he could be the Green Arrow.
Or Hawkeye.
Yeah.
Whoa, crossing universes, Adam. Come on.
Oh, sorry.
Oof.
Gonna get a lot of reader complaints
Yeah,
about that one.
I definitely, I mean, I grew up on the Bonos. That whole campaign hit right when, it was that.
I'm sure I had the cross trainers from that too.
Or the video game. There's like Bo.
Yeah, that's right.
Hit and run baseball.
That's right.
Tecmo Bowl?
Oh, well, right, yeah. Tecmo Bo.
But yeah, I mean, they were marketing to, my age range at that.
Oh, that's another fun fact. In Tecmo Bowl,
I love
Bo
hearing
Jackson
about that.
is the fastest player you can play as, and there are many YouTube videos. People figured out that when you run diagonally in Tecmo Bowl, you like, for whatever glitch in the game, you're faster than anybody else. But if you run like up, down, left, right, you're kind of like back to the average speed. Actually, you might be like a little bit slower. But people realize that if you just keep running diagonally, like they'll never really, as long as you're like elusive enough, they'll never be able to tackle you. And they're just all these YouTube videos of people doing like 99-yard runs with Bo Jackson constantly, because his top speed was like just enough to be able to evade tacklers. So it's another piece of mythology that lives with us.
I love that somebody put that in Tecmo Bowl.
Yeah.
Like a programmer.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Well, Murder, thanks for this pick. It was a good
Thanks
one.
for watching. Guys.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
thanks.
great.
All right.
Now I'll do better on the sports section of Trivial Pursuit.
Good.
All right.
Only if it's about Bo Jackson.
Yeah.
Very nice.
All right.
When I'm running, I can't hear a thing. I can only hear wind going by the holes in my helmet. I can't hear the people cheering. It just goes silent, and I just hear wind blowing by. And I ran, and I ran, and I ran. And I'm still running full speed. Now I'm like, there's a wall. I need to stop. And I look to the left, and this door is open. I don't know where that door went to, but instead of trying to stop quick and pull a hamstring, I said, well, I'll coast, and went on in the tunnel and hit the back wall in the tunnel.
He's gone. There go the Raiders into fine. What a scene. Come on back, guys. Oh, he was flying.
And when I turn around to come out of the tunnel, some of my teammates are running down the tunnel to get me. They were, bring your ass back here. You're not finished with them. Come on. But we're going to do about 3 more of those. Come on back.
91 yards up one sideline, 221 yards later,
And I think in that same game, just to...
In 1991, Columbia Pictures introduced you to an extraordinary new filmmaker and an unforgettable new vision. The director was 23-year-old John Singleton. The film, Boys in the Hood. Now, Columbia Pictures is proud to present a remarkable new film from another extraordinary new talent. The director is 23-year-old Robert Rodriguez. The film, El Mariachi.
Hey, welcome back. This week we're talking about nonfiction things, and I'm talking about a book by Robert Rodriguez, the filmmaker, called Rebel Without a Crew. But before I get too far into it, I want to talk about how difficult it is to pick a nonfiction thing. This is another topic we're going to have to do again soon, because it's just a really ripe subject that we could pilfer for days. Yeah. But I'm going to talk about a great book that came out in 1995 was written by Robert Rodriguez right after he put out a really great little indie movie called El Mariachi. It's called Rebel Without a Crew. It's put out by Penguin in 1995, and it documents Robert Rodriguez's daily life for almost 2 years, from 1991 to sometime during 1993. And what happens is he made this movie, and he had the foresight to journal the whole thing. So this book, a major part of this book is his journal entries while raising the money to make this film, shooting the film, editing the film, and the aftermath. And it's I read it when I was in art school. One of the things that me and my pals always wanted to do was make movies. So anything, we ate up a lot of filmmaking books, but mostly like silly ones, made by indie people. And this one I suggested because it's a really fast read. It's smartly written, and it's just, to me, the subject matter is amazing because Robert Rodriguez was just reading his account is just amazing, and the best takeaway for this book is just how inspirational I found it, and I continue to find it as I reread it. It's hearing the things that he wants to do to make his movies and his philosophies on it. Well, reading, I guess, not hearing. Reading his take on how to make movies and what his idea of art is, and it's super inspiring because it pretty much, he just says through most of the book, hey, what are you doing? Just get out there and make a film. If you want to be a filmmaker or an artist or a musician, then don't call yourself one. Just be one and go do it. And it takes many more pages to say that, but that's the gist of it, and it's really great. There are lots of fun little accounts in there about how he pretty much put his body up for experimentation to get money to shoot this film, and that's another amazing thing. Is why he really stuck out. His film El Mariachi won, I think it was the Fan Prize at Sundance in, I believe, 92 or 93, when it came out. Yeah, well, my date's probably not correct, so don't quote me on that. But the year that it made it to Sundance, won the like a fan favorite prize, and he made his movie for $7,000. And so that's really what put him on the map. Is hey, he made not only a movie for $7,000, a pretty good movie. Since then we've spoken about the movie Primer that's come out some time back, and it was made for even cheaper, and it's arguably just as good, probably better than this, but that's all subjective. What's amazing is that somebody had the guts to say, I'm just going to make this movie. I've got the money to do it. And everything he does is for a reason. He had planned it all out to make money off of the Spanish home video market, and everything was well thought out, and except the little surprises that come here and there, which are documented in the book as well. That's about it. I mean, the story. He documents raising the money, writing the script. While he wrote the script while he was in a drug testing facility, Lord knows what was happening inside his guts while it was happening. Then he documents going to Mexico and filming this movie, and then he documents him having to go to the hospital for the silly way that he was editing this, and this kind of the situation he was in to edit this movie. Then it documents the kind of reaction to the film, and then another inspiring thing is it documents Hollywood courting him, which was a really interesting part of the book because this guy's just rolling his eyes and shaking his head the whole time. But once the journal part of the book is through, there's a few pages in there called Robert Rodriguez's 10-minute film school that is everyone should read it. I don't know if there's probably a synopsis of it online. It's a really short thing, but it's just very inspiring for any artist in any field. It's just kind of it's him saying, listen, people say there are rules, there are things you need to learn, but what you need to learn is just to do the things that you want to do as an artist. If you are a guitarist and you want to learn to play guitar, just go play it. You will learn it. I mean, how many self-taught amazing guitarists are there out there? I mean, all the greats had claimed to be self-taught. So, and that's and he says in filmmaking, that's the key. You just got to get out there and make, and eventually you'll make something good. He says you're gonna make 12 bad movies, but maybe the 13th will be great. If not the 13th, maybe the 15th. But you got to get the bad ones out. So just start going. And it's a really uplifting, really triumphal book. I really like. Is triumphal a word? I think it is.
It is now.
Is it a word, Adam?
It's new to me.
Oh. I think I've heard triumphal, but I'm going to say triumphant, just in case to cover my bum. But since then, he's gone on to make some just really big movies. He's done really well for himself. He directs a lot of movies, and he's well known for being under budget and very efficient filmmaker because he adheres to the tenets that he lays down in this book. He's directed such movies as he did he did a section in 4 Rooms. He directed Dusk Till Dawn, Desperado, The Faculty, Sin City, all the Spy Kids movies, the what is that? Lava Girl and Shark Boy and Lava Girl, and he's making a new Sin City soon. The guy just keeps working and working and working, and not all of his films are breakthroughs or even eyebrow raisers, but they're all done well, and for their market, they all make great money because he works so cheaply, even today. And that's I'm gonna turn it over to other people who read this book and see what they think. What do you think, Mary Varn?
Well, I loved it.
Being an old Texas, Austin person yourself.
Yeah, I went.
Not old, but
former. Yeah, I'm
former.
getting up there. Yeah, I went to school in Austin and heard his name a lot. I wasn't in the film school. I was in the art school. I'm sure if I were in the film school, I'd hear his name a lot more than I did.
Especially during that time period. Cause,
yeah, totally.
He and Tarantino everyone wanted to be them.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no, I love the book. I love the philosophy of, you just got to do it. It's kind of in line with the NaNoWriMo philosophy, which is the National Novel Writing Month. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. But I did that 2 years ago, and basically the premise of that is just write a novel in a month of November, 50,000 words, and the whole point is, a lot of aspiring writers think they have this great novel in them, but they don't just sit down and do it because it's such a daunting task, like a film. A film is even more daunting. There's so many different things you have to know how to do, as Robert Rodriguez says in this book. So, and the point of NaNoWriMo is just do it. You got it. You're not going to get better unless you do some crappy ones.
Just shut up and write kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I appreciated that because I thought NaNoWriMo was a great experience. What I wrote was terrible, but I loved the experience of doing it. And
it was terrible? Why?
Because it didn't really have an ending. I was just go, but it was a great, I'd never written that much before in my life. So,
was it about the tutors?
No, but maybe that'll be my next NaNoWriMo.
That's this November.
Right.
Space tutors.
But I love his optimism.
The forgotten tutor.
That's right. Robert Rodriguez would actually be a great director for Tutors in Space, I think, for the film version. He's got the kitsch kind of cheese in his wheelhouse. But yeah, so I love the optimism in this book. Just kind of like, well, you don't have access to this crazy camera. Just go,
use your mom's video camera.
Right, yeah.
And what's
he's not
amazing,
a snob about it.
Yeah. And what's amazing is this came out in 95, and the technology now is so much easier.
Yeah.
Right. He's trying to figure out how to use a 16mm camera. He can't look it up on the internet. He has to call the company that makes it. And
so now you can imagine all the things you read in this book are how much easier it is now for us to just go create. And yet we still don't.
Yeah, totally. He does seem to mostly address like the technical aspects of how, because that's what's really in his mind. I do kind of wish there were more things about storytelling. Right. And he kind of addresses, or he says, film school, they're not going to tell you how to tell a story. They're just going to tell you how to spend a lot of money on all this technical stuff, but you should just learn how to do that on your own. And I haven't been to film school, but they probably have like script writing classes.
I have a feeling. Well, if you want to be a script writer,
I think his point is go out and do it and learn to do it yourself. I
totally agree with that point. I totally agree with that point.
It's similar to Kurt Vonnegut's like there aren't like English majors don't become authors kind of thing because they look at their work and they go, this is not as good as these classics and these masters that were.
Like, where are the themes? Where's the
symbolism? Why can't I hit this? But then him as a science major just writes. He doesn't know how bad he is by the classical definitions. And he just keeps writing and goes. And I think that's twofold why he doesn't have much regard for film schools and he wants people to take that autodidactic road, but also why he doesn't give any sort of here's how you tell a story kind of stuff, because he wants people to go out and research it and figure out how to tell a story. Like he kind of in this book, he kind of says, I picked up a camera and made movies with my sisters or whatever. Mm-hmm. And that's how I figured out how to tell a story visually.
Right.
And he's just kind of saying, you should go do that too. Like, Jimi Hendrix should be able to pick up that guitar and go after just sitting there with the instrument forever. Yes, he can listen to other guitar music. Yes, the instrument is the instrument. So there are certain fundamentals that are going to be there. But he's kind of saying, talk to who you think you need to talk to get the basics, like to get over those humps. But for the most part, you should be trying to figure it out yourself. I think
But he also did say share it with your friends. That's
right,
also where you get a lot of good feedback.
Right. That's true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sorry, Mary.
No, that's true. I did want to say, I know when I was going to school, I remember people. I don't remember exactly who, but guys saying that they were going to look into these different pharmaceutical studies. Is that a common thing in college, or was this just in Austin?
I almost did a
or
military
what?
one that was like an ultra high protein diet, and you go in for like 15 days and they make you like a super soldier. I mean, they just feed you like this high protein. I would have probably been the like placebo group.
Yeah.
But yeah, they just lock you in Natick, Massachusetts. They just lock you in like a Navy.
We went to school in Boston. There was a lot of that happening.
Yeah, Boston probably has even more than Austin because of all the like.
Well, I bet you Austin's pretty high up there because of the laws in Texas.
They're very lax.
Well, they're trying to attract business.
They just care about science in Texas.
They want to attract business.
Well, the other side too is that you're gonna usually like college kids
have nothing to live for.
Well, they also want quick money.
Well, they can live forever, college kids.
Yeah. So this idea of so you just want to keep me awake for 47 hours and like
I do that all the time.
Yeah. Sure. Okay, you can pay me $100
Holt
to do that.
really did do that all the time in art school. He really did. John slept less than any other person.
I slept in class a lot.
Yeah. But I have a friend who went to MIT, and he's got crazy stories. He went back to these different testing facilities several times, like maybe 4 or 5 times. And there's one where this thing is he had to swallow. So they were experimenting with the digestive coating this pill with a digestive thing. Mm-hmm. So they had to test at what stage in your body it would digest this thing to release
medicine,
the potential drugs that they would use eventually. But they're just testing the coating. So he had a string attached to this thing, and he had to swallow it with the string hanging out of his mouth. And he says the weird thing is just your body just every now and then, like takes it a little bit, and you feel the tug on the string. And so at the end, they had to pull it all out. It was wild, but he's got some really great stories.
He's now a millionaire, right?
No, he's not doing so bad. He's a tech guy, so he's doing all right. But yeah, I imagine this time period, the mythos behind just go to a drug facility and get, I'm sure that was.
Is that still a thing though? I wonder.
Yeah,
I bet you it probably
because you'll see ads on the subways for like, do you have a Coke problem? Check this out.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's like, do you...
Or like someone in your family have alcoholism.
Right.
Yeah,
or
but
like,
it's usually like a specific disease or problem, whereas these things, it seems like they want healthy young people.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on the study.
Navy
Some will do like
is
pot.
looking for people to inject protein into, so I'm pretty sure, yeah.
I think they just need healthy folks to give good readings. But,
And
you don't have to be really healthy, I don't think.
Yeah.
Some they'll look for specific people with like a set of illness. Like these are people who have
eczema,
what they feel are pot problems.
Yeah.
Let's figure out what is a pot problem and like explore these people and take them there.
I'll tell you what is a pot problem. Munchies.
Oh, man.
Well, anyway, I didn't mean to derail it, but that's an interesting part of the book where he talks about being in this pharmaceutical study. And
the greatest thing to me about that is I have like a lot of friends who have spent a lot of money or can at least consider spending a lot of money going to these like writer retreats in like Greece or something, or in
Iowa.
We'll have to edit this one out. There's one that's in like like Marfa or something.
I don't know that.
Where I think David Foster Wallace went when he was like in his mid-20s. But
why do we have
George
to
R.
edit
Martin
that out?
runs one of those, like
really?
like a fiction, like an intensive, and it's hard to get into.
But what I find funny is Robert Rodriguez was just like, "Oh, this will be great. I'll have peace and quiet to write because like I can't like get that in my regular."
Yeah.
He's like, "This will be perfect."
His writer's retreat.
Yeah, it's really amazing. I do as like a quasi as a writer who talks about writing more than he does it probably.
Oh, come on.
No, it's
you
true.
write
It's
plenty.
true. But no, I thought it was really... I do kind of wish he talked a little bit more about his writing process, though. He does seem to do the filmmaker thing where you think about, like, scenes as opposed to whatever, the story.
Well, I mean, if you want... Have you seen El Mariachi?
No, I don't know.
He has the script in the appendix. Too.
Yeah. Well, it's...
And with notes.
it's not super creative, like, written well. It's not...
Well, it sounds like a Western type of
Yeah, it's
thing.
just a very simple, almost anime, like, there's a badass, and he's getting vengeance. And...
I think one of my favorite parts in the book is he says, so I had only done short films so far. So basically, I just tripled the format of for El
He goes
Mariachi.
to the bar 3 times.
Yeah.
That's very funny.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so when I was reading this book, it was probably around the same time you were, Keith, in the late 90s, probably like 97 or 98. This like that technology shift was pretty important. So this guy's working on he's doing a film. I think he did that on 16
millimeter
for $7,000 to do a film. And then we were kind of at school during a big tech shift when everything was accelerating, everything was flipping over to digital.
Turning digital, yeah.
And there was already talk of in animation it's a little different, but there was already talk of people being like one-man studios at that point, and that was like, man, how far off till it's just a one-man studio? 2-3 years later.
It wasn't that far off. Yeah,
it was like a couple of years after that digital
well, I remember
films.
too in that same time period when I was reading this book too. Oh, if somebody had a Super 8 or a 16 millimeter camera, oh man, it was like
digital high.
Did you ever hear this guy's got this and he just shoots stuff?
D8.
He just goes out and shoots stuff on the sidewalk. It looks so great. It looks like an REM video.
I mean, one thing that
the pinnacle of art.
I guess too, like, we had Flash and you had guys who were just making their own shorts in Flash, and that where you don't need actors. You don't need, you can literally in animation do everything yourself if you want to.
Well, I believe that this book is just kind of an early outlier of what is now. I mean, we are in a very DIY situation. We have been for the last couple of years. I mean, even down to home brewing beers, people making their own cheese and raising their own chickens.
Well, those are hipsters.
Well, I mean, it's true, but I don't think Seth Arp is a hipster, and he's making his own beer.
Yeah.
Seth Arp is a friend of ours. But I think that you know, and there's enough of this sentiment now that's just a part of our that's just a part of the zeitgeist currently, and you know, I think he was right at the beginning of that, or if not at the beginning, he was at the beginning for me.
He was at least a huge proponent for that studio thing. I mean, I will say that not everybody's the same. And that's another important thing to note with this philosophy.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, you look at comedians.
There are two kinds of people in this world. People who think that everyone's the same and people who don't.
That's right. There are 0-1 types of people in this world. Those who understand binary and those who don't.
Sorry.
So, anyhow, the thing is, like, with a comedian, you'll have guys who talk about, like, oh, I'm a comedian that just can't sit down and just write his jokes out, but there are people who have to do that. They have to just basically grind through on paper their jokes before they can go and perform them over and over to themselves.
Wait, the ones who don't write them out, how do they?
The other ones just go out and they just try the material on the audience.
But how do they remember the material?
That's part of their retinue. That's what they know. They keep saying it. They modify it as they go. It may change a little bit, but once they've said, like, when they're getting the laughs, they just stay on that when they've hit it. And that joke, they say it enough times that it's not an issue.
Yeah, like that famous guy, One Joke Jones.
Right. So
you just go out and he just kept refining that one joke
exactly
for years and years.
But there are people who will
Saturday
do that.
Night Live?
They'll do that refinement process on paper. Like, they'll just have their note cards, and at the end of their set, they'll tear up that note card or cross it out because it didn't work. And
what's this got to do with?
Well, I guess what I'm saying is now with this philosophy of work, there are people who aren't going to flourish in an autodidactic setting, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't be filmmakers. Like, there's a reason why we have institutions. There are volumes of film.
Yeah. I mean, I like what he said, but I wouldn't give up my time in art school at all.
Right.
Like, you know, I mean, you got to take some of it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
I would give up the student debt if I could, but you know, what are you going to do?
But I mean, there's a certain point where I reached that threshold was, okay, college taught me how to learn this stuff. It taught me how to learn all these programs. It taught me how to learn the fundamentals, and I've got a basic package.
Taught you how to sleep in the class.
Well, it also taught me priorities. Like, okay, I have this class where they want me to do this illustration, and I have this class where I need this animation due. Can I do the illustration and use it as background in the animation? Boom. I've set my priorities. What's important? If the illustration gets a B because because it's really just a set piece for something else, fine. Because the priority is
B is good enough for John Holt.
Because what's more important is making sure this piece works, because that's what I want to, like.
That's what you're studying.
That's what I'm figuring out. And that sort of, like, experimenting, not chasing the grade, but chasing to see if something's going to work, and taking that chance is more important and something to learn in school. Like, it's a level of maturation. No one's going to look at your grade point average coming out of art school or something. Like, that doesn't matter at all. And then when you get
to... Dude, I still put it on my resume.
Not me, I don't care. I mean, you
still
put your, like, education on there, so they know, like, that you weren't just from the slums or something. But
that'd probably make you more interesting.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So I guess where I'm kind of getting with that is that there is a threshold, though, where you go, like, it's like, okay, I'm done with college. Now I could go to grad school. And you kind of say to yourself, well, it's going to be 2 years, $40,000 to live out in a monastic society and make a film with their equipment. Why don't, and Rodriguez rightfully says you should just go get a personal loan for that money, buy the equipment yourself, learn it, make a film.
Yeah, well, what if you have a bad credit score?
Then you sell your body to science. And this is the other thing.
What if you're morbidly obese and they don't want your body?
They probably want your body. Like, they'll probably pay by the pound for morbidly obese people. But I guess, like, the important thing is he also has this. Yeah, basically, like, that philosophy of don't put yourself in personal debt is part of his philosophy. You're right. But that sort of figure out what the priorities are and try to find most of your way through it is important in that philosophy. This was kind of interesting to, like you were talking, Mary, about like, why doesn't he have specifics about storytelling or how to write or any of that stuff? He also, the things he is specific about, the personal journey of, I chose to make a movie in Mexico for Mexican VHS market because I could sell enough of like, I could make enough money off of that to make my next film. Mm-hmm. And that's something you see a lot. Like,
well, everything he does is very practical.
Right.
He's a very practical guy. You know, there's no part of it where he's like, well, I just thought it'd be really a beautiful shot if I did this. Right. He's like, no, I did the shot because there's a ladder in it and I needed a ladder.
Well, there was that there's a live action crew that we worked with on a TV series, and their first big film was going to the Dominican Republic and making a movie about one of their like drug lord folk heroes down there, and basically cashing in on the Dominican VHS like a DVD market. That's so, you know,
I didn't know that.
So our IT guy, who was, you know, whose family's from the DR, knows that movie, loves that movie because it's not a good movie by any stretch, but they basically were, oh, here's where he gets specific. This is his plan. People just started following that plan in a lot of ways because, and what that somewhat shows is that maybe for some people that's like, okay, that's smart, that works. But for some people, it's sort of like they don't have the imagination enough to find other opportunities that will do the same.
Well, they might say too that like, oh, that's sacrificing too much of my creative.
Right.
Yeah, but you know, like he said, like I said though, he's very practical. He said, you know, I'm going to spend 2 weeks in Mexico, and actually only $3,000 of his own money, I think, because I think it was $7,000. I think it was split between two guys, the amount of money, and he says, and that'll get me the money to make my more artistic one down the road. You know, it's
right, and yeah, I mean, I guess I kind of see a lot of the check boxes that he does, and I see people like those guys talked like he did, like, oh, I got so many setups, and I know cameras, and I know this, and I know that, and I guess you just got to be. I think the other part of that whole thing is you have to be aware of your shortcomings, and what you will see in Rodriguez films.
Good luck. We don't have any, John.
Exactly.
Have you heard our podcast?
Exactly. Oh, I guess in Rodriguez films, you'll see, I mean, the big sort of standouts are like Shark Boy and Lava Girl. It's sort of, yes, he's making those for the money, but
he had kids that age.
Right, he had kids that age.
Was...
But he's also like starting to delve into new technical things, like working with CG.
Yeah.
And it falls really flat. I mean, it's someone coming in it's something that takes that much more technical experience and knowledge, and that's where you do lean on somebody. Like, you don't just do it yourself.
He took the things that he learned during that and made Sin City.
But so, I mean, it's like, there are moments in Sin City where it goes cheap. You can tell there are moments where we could have done the other take, gotten the makeup just right, and it wouldn't have looked as like.
What are there bad?
There are a couple
things.
There are a couple moments
like
in
visually
City where
that movie
bad.
Was
specifically
right
when what's the guy who
the big guy with the Band-Aids?
No,
Bruce Willis.
No, it's not even. It's none of those guys. It's a guy. He gets his head cut off, and it's like hanging on by a flap. The makeup on that was really poor, like really poorly done for something that was a big part and a character that was going to be there for a while. It was just something that you have all these other things that are really hitting and working, and to let something like that fall flat, it was just something that I see that someone could say, oh, well, it was just this. But at the same time, there's a certain point where you go, like, you stop being a little practical and say, let's get this one right. And there's a certain point, I think, where he starts to show limitations because he takes on too much of the, like, it's similar to the Bo Jackson kind of thing where you're not going to bring the team to the heights by being a solo player. You kind of need to, like, there's a certain point where you do have to be a team and all work together, and animation all the more so. There's a certain point where you can sit there for 20 hours a day for 4 years and put together a piece, but the limitation is going to be within your own talent. Once you can create something greater than the sum of its parts by bringing the right people together. And that's another talent too, and it's probably
but you
something
can also get a broken heart, John.
That's true. But that's something you can learn as well.
If you open up to people, they could break your heart.
That's true.
How are you going to live with that? Why take the chance?
That's why I don't have one, Keith.
I know.
I sold it in a medical experiment.
That's how you got your Xbox.
Yeah. So, and this is also my last kind of point on this was that it's kind of interesting because his plan was to, make a foreign release to raise money to make more movies, like at a small level. But it's sort of interesting. The latest sort of articles about the industry have been movies aren't marketed to Americans anymore. Blockbusters are marketed to international markets. China is, China and blah and blah, like all these countries all over here are going to pay this much for this movie. And because it has this star, this star, this star, so it can bomb here. As long as it hits all those marks, it's going to make our bank and our like margin that we want. And that's sort of like the practical Hollywood thing.
Yeah, but it's only a matter of time before the next Tarantino, Rodriguez type of person comes up and everyone's like, "Oh, the indie movie's back." I guarantee you this will happen.
But I think we're living in an age of indie movie. Like you have it. I mean, again, indie movies,
it's out there.
Indie movies make their money from piracy.
Well, no,
they do.
So in the 90s, they were all there. Hollywood was still Hollywood back then, but then when Tarantino and Rodriguez and Kevin Smith,
Sundance in and of itself was born out of that age.
Well, there are folks that suddenly it was like, oh my gosh, Hollywood's turned upside down, and these new upstarts are here, and that's going to happen again. Right. It's a cyclical thing. Right. Don't worry.
So, I mean, that's the one kind of big thing I have.
And it might just be on the internet.
Right. There's a certain point where he says, like, there's this experience in movies versus movie experience. There's got to be something said for, maybe you don't need to learn the Hollywood way, but learning to work with people is a certain skill set that you do need. Yeah. And I think that's something you can't discount in terms of being like an auteur or whatever.
Absolutely. And I mean, this is getting off topic. We should wrap it soon, but that's one thing that, thank goodness, I got out of art school was just a group of pals that you love to collaborate with.
Yeah.
Aww.
With whom you like to collaborate. Sorry, grammar police. Sorry, Adam.
God damn it. I taught you, Mike.
But yeah,
I almost ended that with a preposition. Yikes.
But yeah, I definitely recommend this book to anybody in any field, really. Like if you want to do something creative
endeavor,
even if it's like I want to build a boat or something like hobby related, you should just read
I think if you're gonna build a boat, you should read some instructions.
No.
Go to boat building school for that.
Yeah. Come on,
join the Navy, son.
Like if you want to like treat children at a children's emergency ward, you should just go do it. Like just jump right in there with both feet.
If you want to be on the bomb squad and you're the guy who cuts the wires or whatever, like fucking do it. Don't let the CIA tell you like, oh, you can't come into this building.
You can't make nuclear weapons.
Man, I have a dream. I want to be a guy who runs an ice cream truck. Just go get a truck.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
Go get a truck and lure kids to you. No one can stop you from doing this.
But anyway, anybody have anything else to say about it? I mean, we've gone pretty long, but it's the Rebel Without a Crew by Robert Rodriguez.
Yeah, 1995.
1995 by Penguin Books.
Yeah. If you Google search it, just make sure you keep typing all the way to crew, because if you just do Rebel without a, it's always going to fill in cause.
Oh, or maybe Clue, Rebel Without a Clue, and it would be like the Tom Petty story.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Either way, those are both horrible options to get.
What? Tom Petty is not a horrible option. Neither is Rebel Without a Crew. I mean, without a cause.
It is.
No way.
No, but it teaches you bad things.
Natalie
like
Wood,
how don't his friends die and stuff, or he dies?
Yeah. His buddy dies.
It's because he smokes.
And Tom Petty dies at the end of his band, right?
Yeah, yep. But gloriously, like a phoenix, he rises up again into traveling Wilburys.
And I won't back down.
Anyway, that's our show.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah. So let's move into the end.
Let's wrap this sucker. Put a bow on it.
El Mariachi.
possible answers.
Thanks for listening to this first episode of Nonfiction in the New to You show. This was a good one.
Yeah. We apparently had a lot to say.
Yeah. I think this is... We're going to get back into this topic next week.
Yep.
And I definitely think that...
What do we know what we're covering next week?
I think we do.
I think Mary's got a comic book.
We're covering a graphic novel called Pyongyang.
And John Holt's got a documentary coming up.
Les Blank's Gap-Toothed Women.
Gap-toothed women.
So I was one of your hosts this week, John Holt. That's not fiction.
I'm Mary Varn. You can find me on Twitter at Mary Varn, and you can read my comic at npccomic.com.
And I was a special guest this week. I'm Adam Moerder.
So special.
Very special.
Where can we find you, Adam?
You can find me on my Twitter, or Tumblr. Actually, it's probably easier. It's just Adam Moerder. The last name's moerder.tumblr.com.
I didn't know you were on Tumblr. I'm going to follow you.
Oh, yeah. I'm
Me
gonna
too.
Follow you, Keith.
Good.
Follow all of you.
Thank you.
To the grave.
And I've been one of your other hosts, Keith Vincent, and you can find me at Tumblr, earthlingkeith.tumblr.com. You can check out all kinds of illustrations and graphic designs that I have done.
And John, where can we find you?
You can find me at Lord Joho.
You can find him
on the
at
Tweeter.
least 200 yards away from a preschool.
Yeah. At any given time.
Sorry, that got a little fictionist.
That's a little dirty, Keith.
Fictitious.
Fictitious.
Fictitionist.
Fictionfant. Fictionful.
But
On that note, if you enjoyed this podcast, we'd love it if you could leave us an iTunes review.
Or a comment on our website, thenewtoshow.com.
Or you could leave Skittles in an old glove on, and just put it over our door handle. Mm-hmm. You can leave lots of things.
Yes.
Or if you
If
see
you
us on the
didn't like
subway,
it.
be like, hey, good job on that, guys.
Yeah.
But yell it. We don't have very good hearing.
Probably
Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. Just say that.
We're probably nearby.
Yeah.
So so check us out at newtoyoushow.com. We'll be posting links to the content herein where you can find it. Like Bo Jackson's ESPN short is on Netflix. And I'll try to find if it's any other places. I'll put the links there. Rebel Without a Crew is definitely available from your local bookstore. And it may also be available on Kindle and other e-reading
No, it's
formats.
not on Kindle, unfortunately. But you know what? There's these things called libraries.
Yeah.
Go
Look
to
into
them.
them. Check it out.
That's right.
But they only carry fiction, so you won't find it there. That's why they're called libraries.
No.
If
If you're in Tennessee, it's where I grew up. It's a library.
Oh, that's true. That's like the Liberty, which is the Tea
I
Party
don't know.
library.
I don't know.
Liberty.
Dude, tea parties don't want libraries.
I know.
They cost tax money.
Well, I know. That's why the capitalists will build libraries for everybody.
That's true. They probably will.
Yeah. For profit.
But anyway, we'll see y'all next week. There's a plane flying by.
Yeah.
And thanks for stopping by.
Gotta go, guys.
Stay classy.
All
See you next week.
May not be new, but hopefully it was new to you.
It's all about the music. This pitiful life is all about the music. This pitiful life is all about the music.
Be with him together forever, without the limitation of time ever again. So the second coming of the Lord is not dead. They're two separate incidents.